Hello, welcome to another episode of Montana Shares, your opportunity to find out more about the great nonprofits that make our state so great. Today I've got Coleen with Youth Connections with me. Hello, Coleen.
Hi, Bill.
So, just tell us what Youth Connections does.
Well, we are a substance abuse prevention and violence prevention and suicide prevention coalition for kids. So basically creating environments where kids can thrive and succeed.
That's the really short version.
That's
So we're
the
going to
short
go
version.
into the longer, more in-depth version here. I know in the past you started out with lots of grant funding, but that's changed. So tell us about, first of all, how are you funded?
Right now we have a small prevention block grant, and then we're funded with our Youth Connections magazine is syndicated so that other coalitions across the country can use it. So that's kind of our sustainability plan. And then also donations from the community and corporate and just local folks supporting our work.
So basically, the community that you're helping out is what you count on for a lot of your funding.
Yep.
Okay. So you've got something new going on. It's Bengal Peer Performance. Is
Yes.
that correct phrase?
That's correct.
Tell us all about it.
Well, we started almost 2 years ago. We brought in John Underwood, who is a former Olympian, and he's coached, I think, 28 Olympians, but he's done about 15,000 experiments on basically lifestyle on athletes and has put together this entire program that really talks about sleep and nutrition and central nervous system recovery and has proven that one night of partying erases 2 weeks of training. And so rather than going to the kids and just shoving don't do drugs and don't drink down their throats, we actually give them the science behind it and talk them into wanting to do this because it is student-led. It's not something that we can just go in and start up. The kids have to be on board to do it because it's basically peer-to-peer. And so they're talking to their teammates and their friends saying, you know, let's not go party. We want to have a winning season this year. We want to be healthy. So it's really all of their work, getting everybody else on board.
Great. And has it already kicked off, or does it kick off this fall, or when?
We started last year with some students, and we, with the end of our grant funding, we took 4 student athletes and 2 coaches to John's leadership training in Lake Placid last summer. And then we kicked it off this fall and had some kids sign up. We had about 30 kids, and they were meeting weekly, and they voted on a board, and we're looking at doing some fundraising. And then we also took a group of 30 students to Cody, Wyoming, because they have implemented this program with fidelity and have had amazing results. So where we have 50% of our kids stating that they're drinking alcohol, theirs is at about 18%. And we have about 22% saying that they smoke pot, and they're at about 8%. So it's been really effective. It's been effective across the board. The teachers say that kids are more engaged in school, they're missing less school, there's more kids going to sporting events and supporting each other, and their sports have done amazing things. Within a year, they won the 3A boys, girls, and combined athletics for the state. So it's very effective.
Makes a difference for them.
It does.
Excellent. Well, look forward to how that moves forward with you.
Yes.
So, medication, drugs. What's the word on what you're doing to help out in that situation with old drugs that are laying around and that type of thing?
Well, again, what we do is look at the data of the surveys that the kids do, and they do one every other year. One is done by OPI and one is done by DPHHS, and it asks probably 100 questions. There's a lot on there asking kids, you know, are you drinking and where are you getting it from and how old were you when you started? Do you take prescription drugs without a prescription? Do you smoke pot? Do you take meth? It really talks about a whole bunch of things. And what we've seen the last 2 surveys is that prescription drug use is on the rise. And nationally, it's on the rise. 2/3 of kids say it's easy to get. It's easy to hide. Parents and teachers don't know what they're taking. I mean, it's not like they're drinking alcohol. You can't smell it on their breath. It's not like they're smoking pot. You can't smell it on their clothes. So they can, take some drugs before they go to school and get high, and teachers know there's something wrong, but they don't know what's wrong. So it's a big issue. And in addition to that, we've got kids using it to attempt suicide. So we applied for a grant from the American Medical Association Foundation and got one. So perhaps you've seen some of our latest PSAs talking about that prescription drug use is on the rise with kids. We started a new website, which is reducerxabuse.com, and there's a ton of resources on there. And then in October, on the 6th, we've got 2 national speakers coming in that will talk about that and how it affects kids, especially on the developing brain. And then we'll have a 3-hour training session in the afternoon. That'll be $20, and you can get continuing education units for that. But then in the evening, we'll have a free one from 6 to 8 for parents and community members. And our 2 national speakers will speak again, and then we'll have a panel of local folks, law enforcement and teachers and counselors, and just kind of talk about what's going on and where parents can get help.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the prescription drug statistics. What about just the big broad statistics for drug use and substance abuse in general?
We had a slight decrease, like 0.2% in alcohol, which we celebrate anything that goes down.
You bet.
And then the 10th grade numbers were up a little bit, which were concerning. 37% increase in sedative use by 10th graders. So, there's good and there's bad. Meth use is down, heroin use is up. It kind of depends on what you're looking at. So I would love to work myself out of a job so that there weren't any of these issues.
That would be great, wouldn't it? I think all nonprofits, it'd be wonderful if they could eliminate the need for them. That'd be a sign of success in society. So you have an event coming up in October. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Well, that's our prescription drug forum
that
I was just mentioning. And in addition to those speakers, we'll have everybody gets a free bag and a cup and a bunch of different information. And then we're also going to have a mock bedroom set up so that parents can come and look at it and see where kids are hiding things and what to look for. So that'll be interesting.
That's wild. So Find Your Spot is another program you do. I have one of the t-shirts just because I think it's a great logo, but tell us about the program itself.
Well, that started several years ago, and it was a marijuana reduction campaign. Basically, find your spot, don't do pot. And what we find is if kids are involved in positive and healthy things, that they're not involved in negative things. So it was encouraging kids to find something that they find fun, whether it's athletics or art or drama or hiking or photography or whatever it is. Just find something that you enjoy doing and get involved with that. And that way you're hanging around other kids that have the same interests. Your time is spent doing positive things, and less time is available for you to go out and try to get involved in negative things.
Super. And you mentioned earlier you have a magazine, YC Magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
We've been doing that several years, and we do it quarterly, and we mail it to every family in the Helena School District, and then we send it home with East Helena kids, and we're looking at how we can get Townsend on board as well, because they're kind of struggling in some of the areas. But we try to put information in there for parents on drugs and mental health and, how to be a better parent, or what do I do if my kid is acting this way. We've got a whole section in there that's the 40 developmental assets, which is basically we show pictures of kids doing positive things and how that ties into them being connected to the community, and also reduces the substance abuse and substance use possibilities.
Okay. And I'm assuming that local businesses can buy advertising in that magazine to help you out?
Yes, that's how we pay for the printing and the mailing. So I've got one that's coming out in September. So if anybody's interested in our back to school issue, we'd love to have you in there.
Okay. I think that's a great opportunity for businesses to be involved and get the word out about their business as well.
Absolutely.
Now what other information do you have to share with parents and the public that's worth talking about?
Well, we try to stay on top of the website, and as I get more information of local trends and things that are going, we try to post that on there, resources as far as, what do I look for if I think my child might be doing drugs or, struggling to be mentally well or anything like that. We try to keep a lot of up-to-date information on there. I also do a coalition email twice a month, and again, very up to date. The latest information goes on there. And we have a blog as well and 2 Facebook pages. So as I get more information, for instance, vaping is a really big one where kids have the e-cigarettes that they take to school. And there was a story of a guy was a district attorney in Deer Lodge and was finding out about it and went to the school and talked to the principal, and he goes, well, I wondered why I had all these, and he opened his drawer and had a whole box full of these e-cigarettes. Well, kids are using them to smoke pot, and they're called dabs, and it's very concentrated THC that they put on the end of it, or shatters is another word that they use. But you can sit right next to somebody and they can be smoking pot and you can't even smell it. So that's one of the big issues right now, is how do we combat that? Mm-hmm. There's been there's been a huge increase in emergency room visits as well, with kids overdosing on nicotine because they're flavored for kids. There's cotton candy and bubble gum and certain flavors like that. They're definitely targeted to kids.
Wow. Okay. So if I want to get on your mailing list, what do I do to get on your mailing list?
Well, give me a call, and I just need your email address, and I'll put you on there. And if at any point you decide you don't want it anymore, there's an opt-out at the bottom, and just take yourself off. So. Okay.
Now we've talked about all the aspects of students that are, challenging, we'll say. Mm-hmm. What's the fun part of your job? What gets you up in the morning to go to work and brings joy to your life?
Well, Bengal Peer Performance, and I've got a meeting on Wednesday with these kids, and they really are taking the ball and running with it, and they want to make a change. They want to be healthier, and they want their teammates to be healthier, and unfortunately, we've got some coaches that aren't 100% on board, which is kind of frustrating because these guys are really working hard to try and get this going. So right now we're working on a leadership summit in August. So we will go up to Camp Child, and the Y has donated the space up there. We've got Holly Flanders, who is an Olympic skier from Park City, so she's coming up to talk to the kids. Terry White was also an Olympian, and he's actually here in town, and so he's going to come up and talk to the kids. We'll do some leadership training. We'll do some competitive things. Last year they had to race in canoes and do skits, and so that was a lot of fun. And it'll be about 28 hours of pretty intense leadership training, and it's just a lot of fun. It's the cream of the crop of the kids that go up, and they're just really committed to getting this program going. So it's a lot of fun to work with them.
Mm-hmm. And I find that what I read about students in high school doesn't exactly match when I was going to high school, and that they've raised the bar to a higher level on certain things, robotics, and just some really stellar performances on pushing school to a higher level. Is there anything you can share on that?
Well, we don't deal a lot with the academics, but certainly these kids are at the top of the game. The ones that I worked with last year, got scholarships, and most of them are in National Honor Society, and they have to do a lot of volunteer work, which is nice. I don't ever remember doing volunteer work when I was in high school, which is unfortunate. I think that's really important, especially as a nonprofit now. You kind of live and breathe with your volunteers and trying to get your work that way. But there's a great welding program at both the high schools where they just did a weld off in April, I think it was. And so really learning skills that will help them down the line. And that all ties into Find Your Spot. If that's what you're into, is fixing cars or welding or robotics, that's awesome. So just find something that you're interested in and do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that just lost my question that I was going to ask you, but it brought something to mind. We'll see if it can come back to me real quick. And it's not. So anything else that you can think of that you'd like to mention that we haven't covered so far?
We do have another campaign, Think Beyond the Behavior, and that ran 2 years ago. And it was basically for parents saying, you don't have to know what's wrong with your child, just that there is something wrong. And so there's a lot of resources on that web page as well, which is just thinkbeyondthebehavior.org, and you can get to it from our website. Mental health is a huge piece that I don't think was even on the forefront when we were in school,
Right.
where kids are struggling to be mentally well. And I mean, that's another group that we're working with. Is called Saving HHS. And there was 2 kids after the most recent suicide that said, enough, we have to do something. We're losing our friends and our schoolmates and our peers, and we have to do something. So they started a Facebook page called Saving HHS, and they had like 3,000 likes within a week. It was something ridiculous. So working with them and DPHHS, the suicide prevention, state suicide prevention coordinator, is buying us some wristbands with the suicide hotline on them, and so those kids are going to hand them out, and really just getting that on the forefront of people's minds that kids are struggling these days. I mean, 20% of kids state that they have a plan to commit suicide, so it's not something that's going away, and it's something that's very real, and it affects how they can be successful.
Right. The thing that came to mind was you talked about volunteerism. And I know that I didn't volunteer that much when I was in high school or even in my 20s. And I think there's a trend, the millennials are often asked or said that they don't do enough. And I'm thinking, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't doing that much either. But I think there is a trend where more people are getting more involved in the community at a younger age. And you see that, I'm gathering.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Bengal Peer Performance is a perfect example. I mean, they, in addition to meeting in the summer to try and put this leadership summit together, I mean, during the school year, they'll go and meet with elementary kids and talk about healthy living and you know, if you're going to do well on a test, you need to make sure that you're hydrated and you have your sleep and you're eating correctly, and just being role models for those kiddos. But yeah, volunteering is awesome, and as you know, that's how we survive, is with we can't pay a lot of staff, so volunteer is what helps us out for sure.
Super. Well, thank you. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Is there any final thoughts you want to mention, or?
I don't think so. Just
Okay. Well,
check out our website for lots of resources.
there, just go to the website and
There
make
you
it
go.
simple. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Coleen, for coming on the show and letting the community find out more about what you do.
Thanks, Bill.
And thank you guys for tuning in and taking the opportunity to get a little bit of more in-depth view of what our nonprofits do in our community, because they do phenomenal work, and we often have very little time or words that we get to tell you about what we do. And this is an opportunity for you to find out what they do at a much greater level. Thank you for tuning in.